Hey guys, GHAZZY TV here with another non-Path of Exile video. This is a Last Epoch video, which I'm most likely going to be making more of in the future. It's going to be like a pseudo talking about my build and slash review of Last Epoch, of its current state. I have been playing this since alpha during Kickstarter times. It is one of the few games that I am more than happy to promote and support without charging them money as a content creator. I think that the game is definitely worth giving a try. And if you want to, you can check out the links in the descriptions below, including a link to the build that I'll be talking about first. So I think that I'm just going to talk about the build I'll be playing and how it operates. And then I'm going to outline the cons of the game that in its current state that I think, and then the pros. And you guys can make up your own mind. And I'm going to show you a little bit of gameplay footage as well at the same time. So I have been playing quite a few different builds, including a rogue build, which is a new class. But I settled with for this video to go back to playing the Necromancer with a minion build because there was a lot of new stuff with minion builds that I had not touched upon. So basically, what I'm playing is a low life, actually, Necromancer, Skellymancer, where I'm using archer skeletons and mage skeletons and a big fat golem for taunting, basically. So that's my tank. And my mage skeletons as well as archer skeletons are my main source of damage, and I'm playing low life. This is achieved by using a body armor called Sanguinus, designed by CGD himself, which basically makes it so my current HP is lost per second by 20%, and 20% of the missing HP is gained as ward per second. And then by stacking intelligence, I get ward retention, which keeps up my ward above that. So I'm gaining, 20% of 1400-ish per second. But I'm getting up to 3.2k energy, ward, not energy shield, because of this. I'm also increasing this by having the low life boots, which does chill me with a few different mechanics. I have some leech for my minions to reach the grave, and everything else is basically just trying to cap my resistances the best I can. I'm not done with it, and stacking minion damage and stacking intelligence in every slot that I can to increase my defense. It's been a pretty cool build, actually. A link for all the skills and everything. I don't want to go too in depth with the build, but there's a link in the description for my build. Some people change this for a Rip Blood strategy. The Rip Blood seems to be able to stack more ward. I didn't want to try it because I designed this build myself and wanted to throw it together and try it out. It's been working out pretty well. So that's the build I've been playing. If you want to check it out, the link in the description is below. I do want to mention one little mechanic before I'm going to move into the review part of this video. So these boots, they chill me every 3 seconds. And the way ailments work in this game is that they stack, or most things stack. And the way they stack is that each separate instance of an ailment has its own duration. I am chilled every 3 seconds. The chill itself lasts for 4 seconds. Now what that means is that I'm getting a chill effect for 3 seconds. And, for 3 seconds I am chilled. With a new stack of chill, but every 4 seconds is the duration of the chill. This means that for 3 seconds I have 1 chill stack, and during 1 second window I will actually have a 2 stack of chill, which reduces my movement speed, attack speed, and cast speed. I think it's by 12% or something. So every 2 seconds I have, every 4th second is a 1 second duration of having 2 stacks of chill. If that makes any sense. So that's how they stack ailments, rather than it refreshing and capping myself on being super chill with these boots. So it was a pretty neat mechanic. It was pretty cool, actually. And the way low life works, like I mentioned before, is mechanics such as my current health being degenerated, which will then eventually reach a break point where my life regen is higher than what the percent degen I get of my current HP, and the other modifier from the from the boots as well, but mainly the chest piece, is that the percent of my missing HP of my max HP is gained as ward. It's a pretty cool mechanic to stay low life with this build. So, Last Epoch. There is a lot of issues with it. I think the game is great, I have to say that. But there's a lot of issues, and a lot of these issues are actually planned in a upcoming patch that is coming soon. So I'm going to talk about those first. And the main problem I had was that I wanted to do a melee minion build with melee skeletons, because I figured you could scale more damage that way. The problem is that the minion AI is absolutely fucking dog shit. Apparently, the only AI on minions that is good right now is the wolves from the Beastmaster, but the Acolyte or the Necromancer does not have any minions with decent AI. We've had this issue in Path of Exile before with other minions, and one of the easiest way to bypass shitty AI is to make sure you're using ranged minions. I took that solution into this game, which is why we're making Cold Skeletons mages and Cold Archer skeletons as well. Having them ranged was better. There is a built-in system where you can control your minions by using the A key on your keyboard, so I can actually tell them where to go and where to attack. The problem is that sometimes they would walk where I targeted instead of attacking. They're ranged, so they will walk up to the enemy and then start attacking. But generally, I think that the AI is absolute dog shit. They are working on it. Another issue I noticed when I went low life is, as you can see, I have 3,200 award right now. And in here, I've realized that these bars above my character represent 1,500 each. So that's 1,500, that's 3,000, and that's the beginning of the next 1,500 set. Which is a bit skewed in my opinion. But they are working on a interface change for the action bar to make a much better display of how much ward you actually have. So in the current state, I had a couple of deaths where I had to actually look at my bubble down here to look at the number of how much ward I had. Because it was pretty much impossible for me to tell if I was about to die or not. And the easy way to show you is if I unequip my boots, I'm going to start dropping ward. So now we're down to below 3,000. As you can see, now it's changed. Now it's 2 bars. One is 1,500. The other one is halfway on the other 1,500. And as you'll see, I'm going to lose even more. You'll see how this drops down. And this display is terrible, but they are working on a fix for that. So if I take away my chest piece as well, my character is now officially naked, apparently. And you can see now I have half energy shield up to 1,500. So if you know that 1 bar is representing 1,500 ward, it's a bit easier to determine. But yes, they are working on a fix to this, and as well as the minion AI. So those are the most pressing issues with the build that I am currently playing, or have been playing. The other cons, I'm going to go through in a bit, but I'll talk about the initial start of the game. You basically start off at here, I think, in a specific time zone, where you're progressing through the different quests during the acts, and you will encounter different type of time rifts where you're doing something that has happened in another era or another time, or in a different timeline, basically. And I kind of like this approach in general. It allows for a lot of playing around when it comes to leagues and whatnot, which they've said that they plan to do, which I'll cover in a bit. So it's pretty cool. One of the most coolest things that I've encountered when it comes to this is, spoiler alert, this is about a quest. So if you don't want to hear the spoilers, skip ahead of about 1 minute from this. When you get to Ruin College, you can't enter the Ruin College because there's some guy who has a magical lock on the key on the other side of the door. And the only way to bypass that is to go through the Imperial Era, and which is you encounter it in Imperial Era, and the only way to get that is to go forward in time and pick up the key from the guy after he's dead, which is in 1290 AG. So you go forward in time, pick up the key, and then you can open up the Great College from the inside, because you already have the key from the same guy, but you just visited him when he was a corpse further ahead in time. There's a pretty cool mechanics or storyline behind this, and I kind of like that approach to it. So I really enjoyed it. The campaign is not done yet, and it's actually very fun to do. The end game is interesting and really cool. As you get to the end of time, you start off in this area, and you can access an endless arena. For those of you who play Grim Dawn, it's very similar to the Crucible DLC, where you basically go in and face waves upon waves of enemies, and after each 5 waves, you can then collect the rewards from those 5 waves in terms of loot, and then you can decide if you want to try 5 harder waves or if you want to leave. That's about it. And there are some leaderboards for waves available to see how far people have gone, which is pretty cool. In hardcore, if you die in the arena, you're dead as per usual. I am currently playing softcore because I wanted to try out some different stuffs with the build and try Lola for the first time. So that's one of the systems, and these arena keys are dropped from a chest reward, which I've opened here from this current endgame system that I'm currently in, which is the monoliths. The monolith approach is basically doing these type of maps slash greater rifts, whatever you want to call it. You basically go to any of these areas, and the first one is a level 55 zone. And basically you do certain amount of different timeline maps or fractures or echoes, whatever you want to call it. And they have certain mechanics. If you look at the Age of Winter, which I'm currently in, which is over here, I can then choose to do one of these two. And it's going to put the mods in. And as you can see here, I already have existing modifiers. Because if I choose the Willow March, the Echo option 2, it's telling me that the next 4 echoes will have 44% chance for enemies that have glancing blow, where they reduce the damage taken from a hit by 35%. And that increases rarity and experience gain from that area. But it's going to be permanent here, or it's going to be locked in here for the next 4 echoes or maps, whatever you want to call it. And these get stacked harder and harder and last longer and longer the more echoes you're doing. If you want to progress the quest line, there are 3 quests per these time zones or areas. You can then encounter the quest echoes, and if you've done 3 of them, the 3rd one is then encountering the final boss of that area, which I will be showing you in a bit. I have not done this area yet, so this is the first quest echo of the Age of Winter, which I have not done, so I'm going to show you that gameplay footage in a bit. So basically you can just stack these up, and you can ignore doing the quest echo just to farm really disgustingly hard maps for even higher experience gain and rarity drops, to just drop a lot of loot that way. And once you've finished all of these zones, you then get access to Empower timelines, which is, to my understanding, these areas, but in level 100, which is the max level of your characters. It's a pretty cool system. The problem I have with the system, to stick on to talking about cons mostly, is that it gets very repetitive. It's normally the non-quest echoes. The quest echoes have been different from one another and have been pretty cool to experience, but the non-quest echoes, the generic maps, so to say, they are extremely limited at the current time. You encounter either killing a certain spire, or you encounter a certain boss you have to kill that you've already encountered in the campaign, or you have to cleanse a forge, which basically you click a forge and it spawns a bunch of enemies. You kill all the enemies you've done. There's very little variation, and it gets very repetitive very quickly. This is something that they are going to be working on, and they are apparently, from my understanding, in a upcoming patch that's supposed to come pretty soon, going to increase the variety of those things and more different zones and whatnot, to my understanding. I'm not exactly sure what they said there. But that's something that they're working on, and that is their current baseline endgame system. Once you have finished one of these, the 3rd quest echo of a zone, you are presented with an option of choosing 1 out of 3 different blessings. So if you look at this area here, I've chosen a Winds of Fortune blessing, which increases unique drop rate, and this is a roll between 10 to 15%. So if I wanted this specific one, I could run the Fall of the Outcast area till I get a 15% rolled unique drop rate blessing. But you can choose from 3 different blessings, and they have a different numerical roll. I think there's quite a few different that can drop, and you basically choose which blessing you want. And this modifier affects everything I do on these monoliths, so it's not just gated to this specific area. So as you do these, you collect more and more of these blessings. For example, this one here increases the body armor drop rate, and this one here gives me flat HP. I have one with increases one-handed axe drop rates, gain ward when I'm hit. Prefix charge drop rate, all resistance, and I don't have the blessings for the Age of Winter, which I'm working on right now, and we have one that gives me a lot of fire rest, for example. So that's basically the end game system that they're working on, that I'm progressing at the moment. I think it's a bit repetitive. The idea is pretty cool, though. It gives a lot of room for them to do a lot of new things with it, so it's going to be very interesting to see what they do in the end with it. The affix shards that we showed you here earlier, this one here drops affix shards. Basically, you get crafting items, and that goes into the very deterministic crafting system that I know a lot of people have been talking a lot about because of the harvest changes in Path of Exile. So basically what you do is you can pick up these mod shards, or you can use a Rune of Shattering, which you can purchase from the vendor for 2,000 gold, like this. You can just purchase that. I am broke right now, so I can't actually afford it. So what these items do is they allow you, I can show you on an item we're not going to use, like this one. So if you go to your forge, you can actually put that item in, and then you can choose a modifier, and I can choose, for example, Rune of Refinement, which will re-roll all the affixes within their tiers, but adds instability. And instability is basically the only modifier when it comes to crafting that prevents you from making perfect item very easily. It's basically the gatekeeping RNG layers in the crafting system. If I, however, use a Rune of Shattering, it will shatter the item and basically destroy it, and I will get crafting shards RNG based on what exists here. So this is 6 tiers of dexterity, 2 tiers of physical spell critical strike chance, and 2 of elemental res. Shattering this, I got 4 dexterity shards and 1 physical spell critical strike chance shards, which I'm now able to use for crafting. Now I have a bunch of these. The highest you can craft an item is up to tier 5, and this is opposite the way Path of Exile works. Tier 5 is the highest you can craft, which is better than a tier 4, tier 3, tier 2, or tier 1, for example. Tier 6 or tier 7 can only drop. So these here are tier 6, for example. As you can see here, this is a tier 4 fire resistance with a tier 6 level of infernal shade on this item. Those can only drop. So the best items in the game that you can craft would be dropping an item on a proper base that you want to use or can use with a modifier that you actually want or are looking for. And this is very easily sorted by the in-game loot filter, which you can play around with. I'm sure there are plenty of loot filters available in the forums. You can also just tweak around and add this to yourself. I've made some changes here myself where I've only showing the Burial Mask and Ivory Masks here that has any of these specific modifiers, which is resistance and armor, health, minion stats, and what else was it? The crit for skeleton. So I'm very specific about which modifiers I want on those specific bases. That's the only elements I'm caring about, because they're supposed to fix my lightning rest and necrotic resistance. So you can very easily tweak the loot filter based on what you need at the time, which is why I would recommend actually learning this rather than just using a preset one, because you can easily turn it on and off these filters very easily. If you take a look at my gloves, I have a specific color for those because they have the specific stats that I'm looking for those things. For example, the helmet is a turquoise or teal color because it has crit strike for spells for skeletons. And that's about it. Crafting system. To talk further about crafting, this ring, for example, I have crafted and has tier 5 across the board. I cannot make this better in any way or a kind because it has 4 modifiers. There are 2 prefixes available in items, 2 suffixes, and it has 65 instability. I'm going to show you another item if I have. This is already fractured though. Not sure if I can show you. Okay, so this one is fractured, and I'm going to explain what that means. This one has tier 5 fists rest, tier 4 HP, tier 5 intelligence, tier 1 mini damage. Obviously it can be made better. This one here is not fractured. It is fractured, never mind. So basically the crafting system is that the higher the instability is on an item, the higher the chance of fracturing the item it becomes when you're crafting on it. So let's say I wanted to increase the fire resistance on this item. I would then have to use a fire resistance shard, and then the information down here tells me there's a 70% chance for me to succeed on this, which is extremely deterministic as I'm choosing to craft an increased resistance tier, but there's a 70% chance to finish it, 25% for a chance for a minor fracture, and a minor fracture means that nothing happens and the item becomes fractured. A fractured item cannot be continued to be crafted on, but you can shatter orbit if you want to. The 5% for a damaging fracture basically means that the item can become fractured and lose a modifier or lose a tier or 2 or even more on the item. And there are some that can be even worse. Such as a destroying fracture, which will destroy the item entirely. Obviously, we can use a glyph of stability here. There are some different crafting materials you can combine for your crafting. This will, if I don't use any glyphs, it will add 5 instability to the item, which has 10, which will make it harder to do the next craft on it. If you use a glyph of stability, it will instead add 2 up to 5 crafting instability to the item. Or if you use a glyph of guardian, it will increase the chances of crafting the item successfully without and reducing the risk of fracturing. So with a glyph of the guardian, I'll have a 95% chance for success, but only 5% of fracturing. So best case scenario, you want to craft as far as possible with a glyph of stability. So I'm going to try this, and now we have a tier 5 fire resistance. If I then want to put a health on it, as you can see, we have 14 instability. And now the chances is lower and a higher risk for fracturing. Putting that on puts it up of 17 instability, and again, this is getting harder and harder. If we try to craft this a couple of times, I see that now we're on 62, but there's a pretty high chance of damaging it. I can then use a glyph of the Guardian instead, which increase my chance of crafting it. And sometimes this is perfect that this happens. It's a very small chance that you get a crit hit, which will actually increase the tier of a random modifier on the item. And to my understanding, this can only happen up to tier 5. So in this case, we now have tier 5 Fire Rest, tier 5 HP, with our tier 6 Infernal, but we have 28 instability. So if I wanted to stack some intelligence on this just for the sake of it, I can see here that to get a tier 1 intelligence is a bit easier. So we can either do it with another glyph of instability, or we can secure it with a glyph of the Guardian. And this is basically how the crafting process works. Now we fracture the item. So at this point, I can no longer craft anything on it. We have the mod still because it wasn't a damaging fracture. I can use this item, or if I want to, I can then shatter the item. I can't use any of the others, but the shattering works, which will give me the shards for this, which is what we're going to do. So that's basically how the crafting system works. Oh, I got 5 Infernal. Nice. It's very straightforward.
The Moth Pit crew is blessed to have such a VIP member aboard.
38 millennia. Damn you.
Thanks so much, Shenak, for the 38 months with the tier 3 sub, man. I appreciate that a lot, dude. Thank you, sir. So that's basically how the crafting system works. It's extremely deterministic. It's very easy to understand. And before I'm going to go into the other details of this game and with pros and cons and whatnot, I will try to explain some of the mechanics. Basically, a lot of people are comparing this to Path of Exile. Yes, it is more deterministic. Yes, it still has layers of RNG, which people seem to be neglecting. Because of the fracture system, it's just layers and layers upon RNG, especially for Endgame. Right now, in my current state of this character, I need to drop specific base items with specific modifiers that will allow me to craft on it. Because I can't take a white base, perfect base for me, and craft everything on it. Because first off, if I manage to get 4 tier 5s, it will still be worse than having something that has dropped with a tier 6 or tier 7 mod on it. And the odds of me finishing a 4 tier 5 ring like this one is extremely small. I finished this one because it already had 1 or 2 modifiers at tier 4, tier 5, and then I added the rest to it. That's how I achieved a 4 tier 5 item. So it's a bit of layers RNG. I would have preferred that on a elemental resistance base, for example, but you know, you play with what you get. So to compare this with Path of Exile is very simple. You can't. Because Path of Exile is designed, at least if you ignore Soul Self-Found, is designed for you to actually purchase and trade for your gear and not forcing you to craft. You're never forced or incentivized to the same extent to craft in Path of Exile. Whereas in Last Epoch, you are not just incentivized, you are expected to craft. The crafting system is extremely deterministic. You are expected to craft on your items to be able to progress in the harder content. Some builds are able to handle it without crafting too much. You can drop most items you're going to use, but eventually you are expected to craft. Now, this game doesn't have multiplayer yet, but will have. And the idea is for the game to tell you to craft, and it's showing you how to do it. There's even a quest that introduces the crafting forge for you. Neither of this exists in PoEs. It's very hard to compare the systems, because if Path of Exile was designed in a way that they would incentivize and expect you to craft, they would introduce it and explain it, and it would be more deterministic. But it's not. It's not expected for you to craft, which it is in Last Epoch, and therefore they have a much more deterministic system. I love this system. I think it's really good because it makes everyone on equal ground, whereas Path of Exile is very not eluded, but it's a bit weird because it's not really incentivizing you to do it. So only people that bother spending the time to learn it, they can pretty much abuse it. So it's a very hard to compare the two systems. Another system is gambling and idols. Idols is basically the old school charm system that we had in Diablo 2. Basically, you can drop idols that you can shove into this box here, which will give you random stats that affects your minions. I've chosen to run this specific size because they can roll minion cooldown recovery speed as well as crit, which is what I'm going for, to reach 100% crit with my minions. So my idea is to find these idols. I've played quite a bit on this character. I'm level 85, and I haven't found a single one with 2 modifiers that I want. So I only have cooldown recovery on all of these for the time being. But that's how the idol system works. It's basically an exact replica of the charm system from Diablo 2. The gambling system is pretty cool. We're going to head over to the gambler and I'll show you. I don't have any money, so I can't really buy anything, so I'm broke.
You may find stay safe out there. Hey there.
So basically, the gambling system allows you to refresh the vendor for 500 gold, and you can just gamble my items, which will either be white common items, blue magic, or rare yellow items. You can have the off chance of getting a unique item. It's actually how I got my Reach of the Grave wand. It's a unique profane one. So if I were to search for profane wands, I can then refresh till I get it. Now this is a level 6 unique, so it's actually better for me to level a new character up to level 6 and try to find it by refreshing it on that character, because at the higher level you get, the more bases shows up, and that's going to be a bit harder. Some of these uniques are not gambleable, such as the chess piece. That's a random drop. Some uniques are boss only. For example, the boots has a 14% drop chance from the boss inside the Blood, Frost, and Death area. So you can just farm the quest echoes in here till you get yourself the boots, which is what I did. I think I dropped mine on the 4th kill, and I got pretty good rolls on it, so I didn't continue farming better ones. So that's how the system works, but you are able to gamble certain uniques if there's something specific you want that are easy to achieve, either for leveling or, for example, the Reach of the Grave, which I think is absolutely disgustingly overpowered for minion builds right now. I'm able to gamble that. The quest deck, I'm going to show you some gameplay footage as I'm going to continue talking. So, like I mentioned before with the endgame system, is that they have these echo systems which will increase the chances for you to encounter the quest echo. For example, here it says echoes counter 6, and chance of encountering the next quest echo with 7 echoes, it would be 25%. So if I were to do this one, the next set would be having a 25% chance of spawning this one. And you can re-roll these modifiers once, which will make them a bit harder, but you also have the chance of getting the quest echo. So in this case, I'm going to progress the quest echo itself. The game is in beta at the moment, so do keep that in mind. Some other issues is FPS drops, which is mostly seen with minion builds from the time being. I'm not sure what their plan is or in terms of time to fix that. I know the AI issue and the interface issue with the ward is something that they are going to be fixing soon. When soon is, I don't know. So in this quest echo, this is unlike the normal echoes, which I'll show you right after this. In this one is telling me to find the imprisoned Herbarian dissidents. So that's what I'm going to do now. Hopefully without dying. Seems to be over here. At least. Okay, so now we've freed them, and now we're gonna find where Jula were imprisoned. So we're just gonna take the next step. Now we've freed these guys here on the left, and this is something that is very different compared to the normal echoes, because the echoes have very limited variety. Ooh, that's scary. Very limited variety, whereas the quest echoes have always been different from zone to zone. The game is very responsive. I'm personally having a lot of fun with it. Something that's really cool, each ability has its own skill tree, where you can design yourself. I've gone into removing warriors from the pack and summon more skeletons, and then I've chosen to go fire arrow, so I can get ice arrow, which replaces the fire arrow with an ice arrow, and multi-shot. So that's basically how I'm playing the skeletons. I've chosen to go bow archers, but you can do melee skeletons, you can do rogue skeletons if you want to as well. The mage skeleton that I have, I've chosen to do the ice version, and you can have a curse. In this case I have a golem, which I've just beefed up, but you can spec him in to be completely different depending how you want to do it. Here's a buff. Here's a bunch of other abilities that I have, and here's the skill tree. You start with your base class, and once you progress through the campaign, you get access to a mastery skill. The warlock class is not in the game at the moment. We have lich and necromancer for the acolyte. I chose to play necromancer, which opened up the ability here. Whereas if you choose a lich, you would get the reperform ability. And there's some different stats that you get and different abilities that you unlock for specking this. I can spec into the lich tree, but not above the middle line here. I guess I chose mastery necromancer. One of the problems with that is actually you cannot respec your mastery, so don't fuck that up. Once you've chosen a mastery, that's the mastery your character has. So hopefully they'll introduce some way for us to respec the masteries. Because to me it's kind of weird that you're not able to do that. I will mention another problem with the echoes, and that it goes for the quest echoes as well, is that there's very little that incentivizes you to bother killing anything except for doing the actual objectives. It is in general more effective to literally skip everything and just run for the objectives. In this case, I have to find where Jula has been imprisoned, and there's no reason for me to kill these unless I am super stacking a lot of modifiers on the monoliths or for the echoes to drop a lot of things, at which point it would be worth it to get more loot. But other than that, it's not really worth bothering doing or killing anything from my perspective, because you would just waste your time, and it gets very repetitive either way. So now you have to free her, destroy Eula's prison, put our minions on it. And this is completely new for me, this entire area. And now we have to speak to Eula. Okay. Talk to her. Great. That's it. That was the first initial quest echo. And what I would have to do now is continue doing the normal echoes, most likely up to a certain level before there's even a chance for it to spawn. And in here, I open a chest. This is where you get the arena keys as well. So it's telling me that I need 14 echoes before I have a slim chance of encountering the next quest echo. And every echo I do after 14 will increase the chances for me to spawn the next quest echo. And there will be another quest progression. And the third echo will be the boss, basically, for that specific zone, which will, in this case, give me the blessing, which I do not have. I don't have any blessing here. So that's basically how the system works. To show you the echo, how that works, I get to choose between increased HP and the enemies will focus attacking me, which is not good because I'm a minion player in this build. Or I can just increase damage, or I can spend the money to, which I can afford, to re-roll more difficult modifiers, which increase the rarity and experience gain for these. And you see this one here is increased a chance to shred armor, 3 echoes lasting, or 4 echoes with increased critical strike avoidance and increased HP. So if I take this one or this one, I'll take this one because it's a better rarity. And with this included, I am now able to see what the quest will tell me to do, and it's telling me to slay one of the bosses. And like I mentioned before, it is normally more effective for me to just ignore everything and just rush for the objective, especially at this low amount of low amount of echoes that I've done for now.
I would like to point out that any crafting mats you get at level 1 are just as good at level 90, so by killing things and thus getting said mats, you reduce later grinding time by at least killing the mobs you find on the way to the objective. Yes,
that is very true. There is no item level restriction on anything. The crafting mats is used on anything you want to. So the crafting system is extremely basic, if you will, but it's also very easy to get into and learn. As you can see on the minimap, there's a unique item that dropped, and it's actually shown very far away from you, so you're not going to miss set items or unique items, because they will actually be shown on the minimap as well. So it's a very neat system in conjunction with the loot filter. I'm not sure if you're able to do so with like drops like this, for example. This is a tier 6 chill on hit, which we're not going to bother to have them shown on the loot filter in case there's something dropping that I would like to have. Other than that, it's not much to say. The game is still under development. I think that this game has a lot of potential, and I think the game is really good. I definitely think the game is worth trying. Another topic I will mention or cover is, will this game compete with Path of Exile? Because that's a very common question I've had the last few days on stream. The answer is no. This game will never compete with Path of Exile. And to elaborate on that statement, hello. Nice. To elaborate on that system, well, apparently I killed a boss. I don't know where he was, but he's dead. So, and that was this echo. The reason this game will never compete with Path of Exile is very simple. They don't want to. Last Epoch do not want to compete with Path of Exile, and I think that is a very good decision to do. On the other hand, I really want a game to compete with Path of Exile because competition is beneficial for the players. So they don't want to compete because they are looking to create a system where they're going to have league-based or seasonal-based games or game cycles similar to Path of Exile, and they have said that they are planning on doing this at the middle or towards the end of a Path of Exile league, which means that people that want to play both games will be able to be playing Path of Exile on league release. And then once the league starts to die off, that's when Last Epoch gets their release, and you can go hard on Last Epoch. And then once that starts dying off, you can go back to the new league release on Path of Exile. So they're basically placing themselves in a position where they're never going to be competing with Path of Exile. This is obviously great in some cases, but I would prefer to have them actually, or have any company actually starting competing with them, because I would like to see some competition. We're also in a situation where this game is beta, so even if they were to make the decision to try to compete with Path of Exile, it's far from finished. Well, not really that far. They've been getting closer, but they're not done yet. And Path of Exile has been a finished product for a long time, and no matter what comments you have about Path of Exile not being a finished game with all the issues they have. But that's about it. That's all I have to say. I believe I covered the most important mechanics of the game and my pros and cons on some aspects, and my personal take on the game. I think it's worth trying. I do believe that I think it's cost like $35 or something. It's not much money, or $20 depending on the pack. 35. I think the game is definitely worth the money. They are also a company that very much listens to their community. So by buying the game now and playing it and giving feedback to them means they will actually pay attention and listen to your feedback. So if you want to help shape this game, now's the time to get into it. If you don't like what you've seen or like what I've said about the game, hold off and wait till it's more polished and check it out at that point. That's my final take on the game. This was a bit of a ranty video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I didn't want to make any specific format for these. I just wanted to talk about the game and share my my 2 cents on some aspects of it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Check out the links below for the build as well if you want to purchase the game. Hit the like button, subscribe for more content. Until next time, boys, stay safe. Keep rocking.